Okay, it's time for an update. So in the last video I showed you my framing was completed and rough-in electrical was underway. Since then, rough-in electrical has been completed, plumbing has been completed, most of the drywall is up, more about that later, and HVAC has started. Also, I have some details to share there. As always, I've had some challenges with the contractors. So first up was the drywall contractor I hired. Actually hired him to do installation and drywall. They bailed on me on the day of the job that was scheduled to start. They had sent some messages the week before saying they had some personnel issues, but they still made it sound hopeful that they would be here. But the morning of the job, I just got a message from the guy, text message, that they just weren't going to be able to do it. So I scrambled to find somebody. I hired, admittedly, the first person that said they would do it and could get started on it right away. And he said he had experience and some help to do it. But he got out here as promised, and he always worked. He was never a no-show. But his helpers never materialized. I could quickly see he was in over his head. And I wound up working with him myself for about 3 days to get the ceiling panels hung. There's no way he could do it himself. The guy didn't really have equipment. I had to buy a drywall lift off Marketplace so we could do the ceiling. He's a nice guy. I don't want to say anything bad about him. I'm not going to name him and shame him or anything, but a lot of the work's pretty marginal. You can see lots of wide gaps. Like this one, you can actually see wood behind it. High screws all over the place. I'll have to go back and sink those before the drywall can be taped and mudded. So not the greatest job. Not a train wreck, but not great. So anyway, when he finished up the interior, we were coming up on Labor Day, and I said, you know what, let me get you paid. Let me get you out of here. And I told him to save some money. My plan was that I would finish the exterior walls myself, hang the drywall out there myself. So that's what I did. Right after the holiday, I started on that. Or actually, about 10 days after the holiday, come to think of it. And I'm just taking my time and trying to do a good job on it. As you can see here, the sheets are 8-footers. The first contractor wanted to work with 12-foot sheets, as most contractors would for a job with 9-foot ceilings. The second guy, he wanted to work with 8-foot sheets. He's a little older, and I didn't blame him. This 5/8-inch drywall is pretty heavy. I'm glad, in retrospect, I'm glad we have the 8-foot sheets, because there's no way I could be doing this work myself with the 12-footers. But the penalty is you have all these filler pieces. And here we have these 1-foot fillers all around at the top of each sheet. And on the outside, they'll be 2 feet plus, because they have to cover, it's a little dark in here, but I think it works. You have to cover not only the stud wall, but the rim joist at the top, which supports the eye joists that make up the ceiling. So it's 2 rows of drywall just to cover the walls completely. But it is what it is. So I'm getting that done, and then I'll be working on installing the pre-hung doors and so on. And then I mentioned HVAC, another contractor, and more problems. They rescheduled on me a couple times at the start of the job. I think twice, calling me on the morning of the job, telling me they couldn't be there that day. Or actually, that happened on the first day, and then one of the intermediate days. And then I found out that the type of air handler that the contractor recommended we install, which I thought was a good idea, which is a ceiling mounted air handler. And the reason for that was to preserve some wall space here in the kitchen so we could have cabinets instead of leaving a big open space for an air handler. The crew they sent over here to install it had never seen one before. So, they were not that experienced and were a little baffled. So then the supervisor dude came out here, and he squared it away with these guys. We'll call the supervisor Bob. He squared things away with these guys, and they got started in earnest. I came out a few hours later and found that they had mounted this thing decidedly off center in the kitchen ceiling. And as you can see here, everything's pretty symmetrical. We have a symmetrical grid of can lights. The window is right in the middle of the end wall, and so on. So if you took a moment to look around the kitchen, you would pretty much pick up on the idea that this stuff was laid out purposefully to be symmetrical, and they cut a hole in the ceiling, which they had to, but it was way off center. They actually had this thing mounted at the left edge of this hole that you see here. That's why the hole's so big. They had it mounted way to the left. So I put a stop to that real quick. Bob came back out, or he was on his way out here. As that was going on, another one of their trucks showed up and just randomly started driving across my front yard instead of on my driveway. And that's where the leach field for my septic system is, which you cannot drive on. So I had to run out there, stop one of their dudes from driving on my septic field and damaging it. With those two things happening simultaneously, I just finally kicked them all off my property for the day. So then the next day, Bob came back and he said, we're going to solve these issues by me being here every day until completion. So I said, that's great. Thank you. Well, now Bob's become the limiting factor, as you might imagine. We scheduled a date that we would all be back here after the holiday. That day came, and in the morning they called me and said, Bob is sick. So they wanted to push me back another week, and I just said, it's getting pretty unreasonable, because that was the third work day they had canceled on the morning of the scheduled work. So I just said, we need to get it done a little quicker. So right now, they're supposedly going to be here tomorrow. We'll see what happens. My point in saying this stuff is these experiences have really validated my thoughts that if you can possibly do a job yourself, you should just do it yourself. It may take you longer. It may eat into some other things you want to do with your time, but no one cares as much about your stuff as you do. And sometimes people are inhibited about trying to do things themselves because they think, I don't have the skills, I haven't done it before. But you have to remember that 90% of the contractors that come out and do this type of work, they learned on the job. They didn't go through trade school or a formal apprenticeship program. And you can learn on the job too. There's lots of information on YouTube and other websites. I think fearlessness is the most important trait because you just need to dig in, get your hands dirty. If you make a mistake, you don't freak out about it. You step back and redo what needs to be done. And soon you'll have the skills to do it yourself. Like I said, I'm going to be doing doors myself. I'll be doing all my trim work myself. I'll be doing the drywall finishing and texture and painting. I'll be doing the kitchen cabinetry. Probably the only components that I'll hire out from here will be the trim out for the electrical and plumbing, just because both of those contractors have been pretty solid and they're going to come back and trim out their own stuff so they know how they left things. I don't have to try to figure it out. And I'm not saying this to toot my own horn. I'm a desk jockey by trade. That's my profession, is I work behind a desk. I don't do this stuff. But if I can do it, you can do it. Anyone can do it, I think, with just the determination to do it. So that's my plan from here on out. I usually end my videos talking about my completion date, which I need to stop doing. In my last video, I said September, and here we are, coming up on the end of the month or mid-month. And we won't have this done by the end of the month. There's no way. But my goal at this point, so instead of predicting a completion date, I'll just talk about what my goals are. My goal is to have this done by the end of the year. And when I say done, I mean habitable by the end of the year. So I may not have every detail completed. I might need paint in some areas. I might need a little bit of trim work in some areas. I may not have flooring throughout. But it would be a place where I could sleep and use the restroom and eat and work to get me out of the RV. Now, I know there's a lot of people on YouTube that are RV full-timers and love that lifestyle, but to me, it's a drag. I do not enjoy it, so I'm looking forward to getting in here. So that's it for now. Don't think I am getting discouraged or feeling pessimistic about anything. I've not lost my enthusiasm for this project. Challenges and setbacks are just a normal part of a complex project like this. So thanks for watching. Hopefully I'll have another update for you soon.